everyone. Welcome to this full moon astrology report brought to you by CatalystEnergies. My name is Dee. Thanks for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This report is going to detail the astrology leading up to the full moon, which is happening on February 8th, 2020. That is tomorrow. And so we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the full moon that's happening tomorrow, and then we're going to touch on a few things about the upcoming week leading to the third quarter moon, which is right after Mercury turns retrograde in Pisces. And so there is certainly not going to be anything boring about this upcoming week, and the full moon is really bringing up to the surface exactly who we are and wanting and drawing us inward to feel need to express ourselves and who we are as individuals, and to show our hearts, and to be willing to share who we are. And I think that this is very timely because we have to get very clear about what we're doing, who we are, how we do express ourselves in the world, because I do also feel like that there is a lot of fire energy right now, and that this is kind of a purification moment, a phoenix rising type of moment. And the moon in Cancer recently, especially today, having opposition to Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, has been really preparing us in some ways, drawing us down into our power, our sacred power, our feminine power, however you want to identify it. It's drawing us into the stillness that is the void from which we create. And we are in a position right now where if we have been harnessing that and taking it for what it is, it will allow us to hold space not only for ourselves, but for the people around us, as there are some considerable shifts and active things. There's a lot of action potential happening right now, and also a lot of possible illusion about what it means to have power and political power, and things continuing to just unravel, and that process doesn't seem to be going away. So today the moon is moving from Cancer into Leo, and Venus is also moving into Aries today. And so all of those things are playing into the full moon energy itself and how the week potentially could unfold for all of us. So let's look at the chart and start getting some sort of actual visual concept of what I'm talking to you about. And so right now, this is the chart of the moment. And let's see here, I'm going to get a stylus, and we have any day now. Yeah, there's the moon, 28 degrees of Cancer, the late degrees of Cancer, and our sun still in Aquarius, getting into the later stages of Aquarius, starting to really be focused much more on management as opposed to let's see, consolidation of our power. And this is going to be important for the full moon, obviously, because the sun will be in Aquarius, the moon will be in Leo, but also to show us that there is a bigger picture going on, and that there is a purpose to what is unfolding. And I think that the more that we can stay focused on that purpose, and the more that we can keep that perspective, I wouldn't say the easier things are, but the more grounded we can you know, continue to allow ourselves to be, and we can also be kind of a beacon for other people that might be less, you know, less comfortable with the changes that are happening. And that's not a judgment, that is just where everybody is. And that's part of Aquarius, is accepting the different stations in life that everybody seems to fit, because it's all perfect and all part of the process, and we're here to all take care of each other as well as ourselves. So, but the reality is that that means that there are people at different points of awareness and evolution, I guess, and that we have to still stay focused on the bigger picture about where we're all going, not just where we're going individually. So late Cancer, we can be feeling very strong and empowered emotionally. We can feel like we really are holding space for ourselves, with the opposition to Saturn and Pluto today as well. I mean, that's just, it feels to me just a reminder of, you know, do we feel secure in what we are tapping into within ourselves. Are you sure that you don't want to? Are you sure that you don't need actually these like larger institutional structures that have been in place for a really long time that really define a lot of your reality? Are you sure that you're okay with them going away? Because Pluto, that's kind of Pluto's MO. Pluto is just like, oh, so you think you know, do you? Okay, well, let's go on this journey down to the underworld and I'll show you what you think you know and what's really going on. And of course, Saturn's just making it all very, very real. It's just like, yep, this is it. These are the things that are real, especially the engine of nature. That is very, very real and is something that you, something that would take a completely different focus of energy in order to change or manipulate. And I think that Saturn at this particular degree that is pointing out like the natural world and how powerful and mystical it is. It's very, very real, and it's very, you know, it's not easily moved unless you understand kind of the underpinnings, you know, the underlying, you know, energy of how everything works in the universe. And who knows that? We all think we kind of do, but there's no collective consensus on that yet. So the moon definitely getting us to this place, is about to move into Leo in just an hour. And so even if we had felt like there had been some faltering or there was some kind of like gust of wind that came through and knocked our straw house down, it's okay, because it's like the last bit that's just like, oh, hey, you know, pay attention, you know, do you need, you know, where is your empowerment? Are you sure that it's within you, or are you still kind of like clinging to these structures that are just being torn down right in front of our very eyes? It's just be clear about that with yourself. But then she moves into Leo, and then we're going to start feeling this, you know, urge to really not only express ourselves to ourselves, but to share, to like to let our hearts shine, to let our inner sun shine. And since it's the moon, it's going to be more of an instinctual kind of urge and emotional drive in some ways to do that, you know. And it's very much about us as individuals. The moon very much represents that part of us inside, the inner voice, our subconscious, you know, and it's really going to want to come out. And at the same time, we have Venus also just moved into Aries, you know, finished up her cycle in Pisces, like the ultimate cycle, and is now coming into a place of pure potential. And she wants to create here, and it feels good to her. And being in a place that has all these potentials and all this action potential and all of this creativity, she really wants to, she's pretty feisty here, and she's ready to entertain all of those, not ideas, but just like put it into action, actually create something like in real time, in a real material, in a real medium, right? You know, creating some art, writing something down, playing some music, all of these things are part of moving into this zone. And the moon in Leo is gonna line up in trine with Venus. And so also these two feminine aspects are going to also support each other very strongly in these creative fire signs that are more about our passion and expression of it. And in some ways kind of reinforcing, you know, this perspective from what we're trying to create, like emotionally, what are we trying to create within the context of relating to other people, you know, what are we trying to create from the stillness or the darkness within as well. What's in our subconscious, what's in our feelings that want to come out. So the moon is really, and Venus are really supporting each other in that way. And then the moon comes and also trines Chiron. So this is definitely going to be like, I want to talk about what my wound is. I need to express where I'm wounded as a person and put it out there and share it and, you know, acknowledge my full self. And so that also is coming to the surface today. I mean, this is all just today. And then the moon will come and square Uranus and Taurus. And this is going to be the first like real tension with the moon in Leo in terms of wanting to express ourselves and wanting to share, you know, wanting to share our hearts and, you know, be expressive creatively. And Uranus is about is a transpersonal planet. It's about collective awakening, and collective awakening happening in a very material sign. So the actual like nuts and bolts of reality of like restructuring themselves for the collective, which is really hard to wrap your head around as when you're talking about Leo, because Leo is about the individual person, is about the expression of the individual heart. It's very childlike and innocent, but also very much focused on the self. And so there is going to be some tension building today, especially with Chiron pretty much right in the mix as well. And so by the end of the day, there's going to be, you know, this need to want to express ourselves, what our wound is, but it's going to be really challenged by this larger context of Uranus being like, well, this is all part of the awakening. And you look, Uranus is at 2 degrees 59 minutes. Tomorrow, the same day as the new moon, Uranus moves into a new degree, which is like a whole different symbolic frequency. It's a different archetype. And right now we're in this process of natural unfolding. And the next degree is about the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's like the divine, we're going to start making the divine connections, the links between us and, you know, divinity that are going to allow the pot of gold to manifest. You know what I mean? It's going to, things are going to turn on, but it might not feel like it's what we, you know, that it doesn't necessarily align right away with how we're feeling about what we need to express. And it's very much like, this is how I feel, this is what's going on for me, this is how I'm hurt, these are my wounds. And Venus isn't discouraging this. She's just like, yeah, like, let's just make things happen. But Uranus, oh man, it's just take your time, slow your roll, know that the collective is waking up in a very real way, and it's happening on a very natural timeline in some ways. So when we come into the full moon tomorrow, which is, let's see here, I'm going to show you this chart for tomorrow, if it will load. I hope it does. Yeah, okay. And here you see the opposition to the moon. So let's talk about this because it's 20 degrees Leo and 20 degrees Aquarius. And I've been reading this very interestingly. And when you get to this point of 20 degrees or 5 degrees, as you're at the exact degree point and about to cross into the next degree, it's kind of that moment where you throw something up in like a ball up in the air and it reaches, there's a term for it in physics, but it reaches that point where it's weightless and then comes back down. You know, it's the transition between defying gravity because of velocity and force, and then becoming gravity overcoming that force and then pushing the object back down towards the center of the earth, which is gravity, mass following the curve of space-time. Anyway, so when we move into the new degree, that's kind of what it is this like transition point. Like you've reached the pinnacle of this like energy that's associated with this degree, and then you're about to switch over. So 20 degrees Leo is the Zuni people like worshiping the sun. And the 20 degrees of Aquarius is a dove bearing a message of hope and peace of mind. The sun, worshiping the sun is, and then it's the idea that you're kind of sanctifying and ritualizing the idea that the sun gives us everything that we need. And sometimes the sun gives us fire. You know, heat is one of the most common catalysts in a chemical reaction because it provides the energy for something to take place chemically, a reaction to take place. And it's also, it provides the energy for all kinds of, you know, for everything that we have. It is light is the source of energy that makes everything happen as far as we know. It's the only real energy that's in the universe, except for dark energy. We have no concept of what that, we don't even know what that is. It's just a name to explain something that we don't know how to explain. So in this imagery that we're worshiping the sun, because right after it, the next degree is really about the Kundalini awakening, kind of, you know, making you crazy a little bit. It's the symbol of these chickens that are flapping their wings like all over the place, trying to learn how to fly. Like it's completely clumsy and it's overwhelmed you, and it represents like what happens to the first like real awakening of consciousness in an ungrounded, you know, inexperienced being in some ways. And so right after, so we're worshiping the sun because we value it, but then right after that, it's like, okay, so now you get it. Here's the energy of the sun, and it could be overwhelming if we're not like grounded into something. Now, the good news is that the sun is showing us like, hey, this is a good thing. There's this message in this situation of the, here's the, let's see here, let's get the, there's a message here in the, where the sun is about like all the work that you've put in, like there's a, you know, there's a message of peace of mind and hope, like it is all going to come to fruition in this way. And so there's the opposition here at the full moon, the moon being everything that's going on inside of us, you know, the feelings and the intuitions and the fluid watery realm of how we feel, like it's all going to be illuminated, and we have this potential to ritualize this situation in order to really value it for what it is, because it's going to be like a phoenix kind of moment here, because fire does come through and purify, and fire does come through and cleanse, and it's destructive when it does that, but there's a reason for it. And I just get this sense that that type of energy is really going to be very prominent as the week continues on to the third quarter. The other thing that's happening today, you can see these blue lines. We have Mercury that's going to trine at the North Node. I can't really get, let's see here if I can get it to move up. Yeah, there we go, the North Node in Cancer. So Mercury, you can see here, is going to trine at 120 degrees, totally balanced. And so as the nodes go backwards, we're kind of like tightening up, you know, I wouldn't say it's like a regression, but we're kind of revisiting all these aspects when the nodes move backwards about what it means to relate to all of these energies. And so the moon, the North Node of the moon at this point is really, we're an early Cancer, you're still kind of imitating the people around you. Like you learn the basics of how to communicate and how to get through your life and how to manage yourself within the context of the culture. And now you start to emulate and imitate, you know, the people around you that seem to be secure and to be safe and have, you know, emotional empowerment in some ways. And so but we're still imitating. We haven't like quite gotten to the point just yet that we actually can kind of like start to branch out emotionally on our own and feel rooted into something else that allows us to feel safe. And Mercury is going to come along in Pisces, is eventually going to go retrograde, and is starting to, it's confusing, it's not very clear, but it's also very, it's very divine, it's very spiritual, it's very compassionate, it's leading us, you know, these messages and communications around the whole, taking care of the whole, being part of the whole, with love. It's about going back to love and being inspired. And I think that it'll be clear when Mercury lines up with the node to pay attention to who, you know, what is it that we're emulating in order to feel empowered, like collectively as a species, as a group. You know, we're collectively being drawn to this place of trying to figure, you know, to emulate the systems or the sense of personal power that we see in other people or that we think is possible. You know, maybe it's more in a mythological context of like archetypes that represent who we want to be, where we're trying to get to. So Mercury, when you know, tomorrow at the full moon, is going to trine with this North Node, and I think that the way we're trying to conceptualize that is going to be very much supported where collectively we're trying to go in terms of you know, what is it that makes us feel safe and secure emotionally, and like what kind of boundaries are we going to create in order to allow us to have true stillness. And then the moon is gonna, you know, the moon's gonna come along and oppose the sun, and from here it's gonna, you know, we're going to move through the week and to the third quarter, which is going to be a moon in Scorpio that's going to square the sun in a late Aquarius, and that's going to be a crisis in consciousness. And right after that is when the when Mercury goes retrograde, and when we start to really pay very close attention to the messages, the way we're communicating, the way we're conceptualizing the ideas, the thoughts, the inspiration, really, to where it's going to become louder, it's going to become more obvious, our attention's going to be drawn to it quite a bit, and it's going to be even more confusing when it's in retrograde. It's not going to necessarily make sense all the time, and this is why at the full moon, it's going to be really helpful to pay attention to where the North Node is, that who is it that we're emulating, what is our exemplar, like what symbol, what archetype are we collectively moving towards, that that represents how we can be secure within ourselves. Because the reality is that this, the structures are crumbling. They're just in the process. There's no going back now. That was the Saturn and Pluto conjunction. There's no going back to it. It's happening. And so we are in a position where the full moon's going to show us, we can ritualize it, and to see where our full confidence and expression of ourselves is. Because, the sun is going to come through still and just kind of burn everything away. And I'm not saying there's going to be a solar flash, like who knows? But I think that it's really going to be about within us, and the ability to value the sun within us, and what the full expression of who we are, and the sun showing us and knowing that it's going to be that this is a message, I just feel like it's going to be shocking. Things are going to be weird. People are going to be very challenged, and it's going to be very fiery, and it's going to be very confrontational potentially. And there's going to be something about it that feels good, because you're just like, I just want to do it. Like with Venus in Aries now, she's definitely like, yeah, let's get it done. Whatever it is, I am on board. So I think I'm going to leave it there, because it's just a lot of information about the full moon. And so what I'd like to do is I'm going to do a couple individual videos for all the signs, and do more of an intuitive reading to help people hone in a little bit more on how these things are going to potentially, what areas of your life they could potentially manifest in. So I would say, value the fire, value the sun within yourself, worship the sun within yourself. It is absolutely, when we all open our hearts, that is when we create the most, and sharing it is helping other people. It is in self a catalyst. When you share your story, it's opening other people to the potential for them to do that as well. And we all kind of awaken each other. I would say with the moon, it's gonna ramp up a little bit, but by the end of tomorrow with the full moon, we're gonna be in full force with it. And things are gonna seem confusing, and they're gonna seem confusing throughout the week, I think. And with the February 15th, we got the third quarter right after Valentine's Day, and that's gonna be a time where we're gonna be a crisis of our consciousness, and we're gonna go very deep at that point, as far as I can tell, with the moon in Scorpio, and then Mercury going retrograde right before that. It's going to get confusing, and it's going to get dark. And so right now we are able to tap into what our most confident selves, because we're going to really need it. That's what it seems like. Please reach out if you have any questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, which you probably are, check the description box below. It has all the information. Facebook page is the hub. You get everything here. at Facebook. I update my blog. That's a daily astrology post. I'll also link that here. But if you go to Facebook, everything on all the different platforms is brought together in a hub. And that's also where you can book readings with me as well. And also just connect if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please reach out. I'm happy to engage with you about this information. And I will see you on the videos for all the 12 signs for an intuitive reading. Take care, everybody. Have a really fabulous full moon. Do something creative. Actually create something. I think that's really going to be a useful tool right now. So I love you. Thank you. I will see you next time.